and I would like to introduce Mårten Spångberg. He's a performance artist and lives and works in Stockholm. He's interested in choreography as a broader, in a broader sense, and he's accessing the field with experimental practices, with creative processes, and with different formats. Since 1994, he's performing on stage, and since 1999, he's working as a choreographer internationally. We work together with Xavier Leroy, with the Ballet C de la Paix, Jan Litzma, and Claude Jurak. And together with Thor Lindstrand, he also founded the interdisciplinary festival called International Festival. Is that true?
We can come back to what it was.
What it was, okay. Which brings or bring together architecture, choreography, and performance. Mårten is also a teacher. For example, he was the leader of the MA in choreography at the University of Stockholm. And yesterday we saw here in Zurich Moves his piece called La Substance, but in English. It was a 4.5 hours performance and dealt with the topic also of the festival, which is time in a broader sense. And now we hear Mårten talk about time, and afterwards we can have like a little talk all together.
Great. Can you hear me over there, Madame, in the red? Maybe I have one there, but I'll try to do this first. It's a little bit analog, or so. Hi. Great to see you. So, sometimes one thinks about, why do I continue to do this? I mean, not lecturing, but why do I do this? Why do I continue to make dance? And most of the time, one invents deviations that are not true at all. But sooner or later, you come to an insight. And I thought, we were thinking about, why do I continue to do dance? I mean, visual art is much better. The parties are wetter. The champagne is more expensive. You can, sometimes you get picked up at the airport and not, you know, so why do I continue with dance? And then your body gets old and it hurts most of the time. And it's also that you can't get drunk on the opening night because you have to do it again tomorrow. For visual art people, that's much better. You can get pissed drunk to forget what you did in the museum. Whereas I have to stay sober and then have to face it again tomorrow. Fuck. So, but then maybe, a long time ago I had a girlfriend who said that she was smoking before lunch, because if she didn't, she constantly started to cry. Yesterday night, we did the performance in the Tanz house, and then I was packed down the whole shebang show. So a little bit on the left of myself, so if I start crying, it's because I haven't smoked enough, or that she left me for too long ago, or whatever. But I can have a tendency to become a little bit sentimental if I haven't slept. So don't worry. However, sometimes you come up with, why do I do this? And I realized, or I came to the insight, that the reason why I do dance is because of the moment that we had just before, which is the moment you guys are here and I'm here. And something has started, but nothing has yet happened. This moment of, and now it's all too late anyways, right? But the moment when you go on stage, when the audience is there and you go on, I usually prolong this moment in the work that I do. This moment of, I come on stage, and then I'm just there with you guys. And this is lovely, and it's a bit frightening, of course, also. But this moment of something has started, but nothing has happened. It's a little bit like when you go to the cinema, you know, when the commercials are over, and then the trailers are done as well, and then this woman with the torch, or the unicorn comes towards you, and you kind of go and do a little bit down. And that moment is almost so fucking great, right? Because something has started, but nothing has happened. And then the moment after, Bruce Willis shows up. And then of course, even if that's Drew Barrymore, we know it's Drew Barrymore, and then she can only be the girl of my dreams. And not something bigger than so, right? The moment with the lady with the horse, or the lady with the torch, there, everything can happen. Everything is open. So, and that's what we have with performance that visual art people doesn't have. Many others doesn't have. When you go on to play in the music, whatever, you play Beethoven's 7th Symphony or whatever, you know what's going to happen. It starts or whatever. But in performance and dance, there's something deeply indeterminate in this moment. So something has started, but nothing has happened. And continuing this, perhaps, what is the possibility is that what is that experience? Perhaps it's the experience of when time becomes, so to say, visible in itself. It's now, but it is a non-contaminated now. It's a now. And now that is non-polluted, so to say, right? And now that doesn't have to live with a before and after, but it's just a now. So, that was this introduction. And I read on the internet that it's very good to start a lecture with an anecdote, so I will now do that. But then I read on another webpage that it's also good to start with 3 anecdotes, so that so you have an opportunity to make a choice. And not only between 2, because that's like sushi or sashimi, but when it comes to 3, then you have to step in yourself and consider it. So, a few years ago I came across an interview with a visual artist, theoretician, art historian, poet or whatever, Henri Michaud, a Belgian guy in France. And in this interview he's asked the question, so Mr. Michaud, when do you consider that the paintings in the museum, in the Louvre, are at their best? So when are the paintings and the sculptures in the Louvre at their most chill? And I was a little bit thinking that I should not read the answer, but I should think first, what would I think? So Tuesdays, because then there's a lot of young people, like, you know, school classes coming in, and that's always like a little bit, the orchestra is nice, and the improvisation. Or maybe it's Saturdays, because then there's a lot of Japanese tourists or something in the, or maybe, I will need to sit so I can see, or maybe it's, what was it, on Saturdays, because there's lots of Japanese tourists, or maybe, you know, at fundraising parties, because then they know that they will be sustained. But Michaud answers a little bit of for me was surprising. He says, well, obviously, when the museum is closed, because then the paintings and sculpture, they can enjoy themselves and hang out together. And I thought it was amazing. So like, you know, whatever paintings they have in the Louvre, but when Mona Lisa doesn't have to perform being Mona Lisa, when she's just a babe, or a girl, a really old girl nowadays, right? And when the paintings can sort of, I really like this Ben Stiller movies, The Night at the Museum, when the museum comes alive as itself. When General Custer or whatever, who's sitting there on the horse, can sort of have other desires. I'm really sick and tired of whatever, T-bone steak and pancakes or whatever they eat in America. Can we go for vegan today? That moment is something extremely pleasurable. But maybe there is something more intricate in what Michaud says, right? And for me, in the work that I have done, well, especially since 2000, well, that's also an insight, I guess, that at a certain point in my career, at least, I realized that I have actually only done one piece over and over again since I started it. My first thing was in 1994, and it's just that the times, my environment or my context asks the questions a little bit differently. But I've always been occupied with this moment of when time fades, or when things can be, well, yeah, when things can be for themselves as they are, things and people and so on. So there's something, for me, distinct about what Michaud proposes there. Like, the museum is at their best, or the paintings and sculptures are at their best when they have this permission to be with themselves. Because of course, when a Mona Lisa performs Mona Lisa, she's only allowed to be that, right? She should fulfill all our expectations from kids, or, you know, the first time I saw an Andy Warhol live, or whatever, for real, it was a little bit disappointing because it was so small. But when the museum is closed, and the paintings can be small as much as they want, it's really great, actually. So this moment is something that occupies me, and this is perhaps even more difficult or and demanding task when it comes to making performances. So maybe there should have been some kind of punchline or a cliffhanger in that Michaud story, but he was quite a boring guy, so it would be not to make him justice if I would make it kind of a joke about it. So the second anecdote or little example story is from an even more weird person to quote. Mårten Newman, the painter, you know, color fields. And his paintings, on the other hand, they are a little bit disappointing because they are somehow too big. Have you thought about this? That Mårten Newman paintings are a little bit too big. They're kind of a little bit too impressive. I rather like that the color fields are a little bit too small, so that they sort of, oh, whatever. But in front of Mårten Newman, you have to say, fuck yeah. He definitely had a big studio. But I don't really like that. But anyways, in an interview, also an interview, he was asked a question which is pretty pertinent, I think, which was that, so Mårten Newman, what is it that you want with your paintings? I mean, parentheses. You have devoted your life to color fields, like. So what do you really want with your paintings? And Mårten Newman says, well, you know what? I just want the paint on the painting to be as beautiful as it is in the bucket. You know, the bucket when he goes home from the color shop or whatever, or in the tube. I just want the paint and the paintings to be as beautiful as it is in the bucket. And I thought, what the fuck is that supposed to mean? He had no idea. But that's a kind of a cryptic sentence, maybe so. But then I thought about it a little bit more and thought, well, it's pretty cool. Because, like, there on the canvas, Oliver and I, you know, Marcus and I talked about it before in the basement. There, whatever this red stuff is on the painting, it might be, you know, look like a horse, or it can be a cloud, or it can be, well, blood from a crime scene, all kinds of things, but it can always only be something possibly this or possibly that. It's possibly a horse, or it's possibly the nebulosa or whatever, right? But so, Barnard Newman wanted the paint to be as beautiful as it is in the bucket. Namely, in the bucket, it can be, indeed, right? It can be everything. Also, that which we have absolutely no idea about. It can be that we cannot even imagine imagining, right? So the bucket contains every painting, done and to be done, and that will also never be done. There, if we would translate painting to time, there the painting is ticking and talking. There the painting takes time. Whereas in the bucket, it is time, right? It is the veriness of time. It is all the time, it's all the time, all the time. Forever, and since forever. We're fucking cool, right? To put the lid on all the time, forever, always. I thought that was quite cool. And somehow impossible, of course, right? How could I think, which I didn't, but can I think about making performances that are as if they stayed in the bucket, as if the museum or the theater is closed? That the performance, as if the performance really can be itself and as such. It's good that in my pedigree we have long lives, so I have plenty left, right? La substance is called la substance, but in English, it's very beautiful when Marcus Oliver, right? No, Marcus Oliver, right? When Oliver says la substance, I like that. When I say it's la substance, but la substance, but in English, it's called la substance, but in English, for a reason. So as we know, the substance in Greek philosophy is, I also read that on the internet, that it's always good to talk about Greek philosophy at some point in the lecture, because then you sound like a prominent character. So, but I don't remember, because it's also good to say Greek philosophy, because then you don't really need to know if it was Plato or Aristotle or somebody who knows what. So in Greek philosophy, la substance, or the substance, is, as we know, that substance that gives prominence to everything else. So it's the ur-substance, the originary stuff. That is before everything, and that gives, is the mother, or mother material, so to say, right? But the substance, of course, we cannot have access to. If we had access to the substance, we would also have access to all materials, every thinkable capacity, at the same time, all the time. So the substance is the material that we cannot have access to. And this is also what the performance yesterday wants, right? To consider this, the material, the performance is that material that is the starting point of whatever can be thought or experienced. And at the same time, you necessarily don't have to withdraw from becoming something that we can own, or that I can take home. So, but of course, la substance, but in English, because if it would only be called la substance, it would be a little bit like, oh yeah, this guy believes in metaphysics and shit. So, this la substance, but in English, and at the same time, obviously, the substance is that can never be subject to translation. It is always the substance. La substance is la substance forever and ever, since the beginning of time. It is that shit that is in the bucket of Arne Newman, right? The substance is the paintings and the sculpture, and when the museum is closed, that's when they have access to themselves and as such. So, it could also not be called the substance, then it would be kind of sounding like a Dr. Dre album from the mid-90s or so. It would be a good idea. So, la substance, but in English. Also, then, the substance, if it is the originary material, it is also, goes without saying, it is also undividable. The substance is the substance, pure and simply. It cannot be divided. It must not be divided. If it is divided, right, then we can say the left substance and the right substance. The substance is always one. And however, in the performance yesterday, for you guys who were there was more than one thing happening, obviously. There was maybe way too many things happening. But there is also, again, the idea here is not that the performance is many things, but the experience is a oneness. I have to elaborate on that a little. So, boom. We will come back to that one. La substance, but in English. Now, so I will try to suspend myself from saying the third example / quote. I have to remember something. Okay, whatever. But so the third example is a little bit tacky because it's from Godard. And as you all know, for you who make art or for you who go to dramaturgy education, if you're in a studio visit, for example, if some curator or whatever says, can you explain? Well, you know, as Godard said, then everything is cool. Then, the curators are, or programmers for that matter, And then you can just invent something, because Godard said way too many things. So you can never keep track. And they were always a little bit whimsical and cryptic, so just say something. I mean, as Godard said it. Jose. What we should come back to when it comes to la substance or the substance later on is how to not fall into a trap of modernism, or how to not fall into the abyss of essentialism, universalism, and a kind of vitalist attitude, but in the second. So Godard has this little quote a little moment where he says, "Pas une image juste une image," right? Not the right or not a justified image, just an image. And I find this quite intriguing. So to say, what he proposes that I'm not interested in making justified images. It should just be images, just an image. And the proposal there is that a justified image is one to which I can say, it has an ethics, it has a politics, it has a moral to which I can say, that's not really for me, not my cup of tea. Another sort of, these kind of sentences that always smell a little bit bad, but that's not my thing. But it's just an image, this is a more complicated thing, right? Because it's an image to which I cannot say this or that. I have to take an interest in this image, or I have to betray myself in a sense. It doesn't tell me what to do. It doesn't ask me to say yes or no. It asks me. So, and I think again what Godard tries to say is something similar to Michaud and Barrett Newman, namely, in front of this, what you experience now is a sense of substance, is a sense of in itself and as such. And you have to make your mind up about it. You have to decide what this is, right? You cannot choose, I'm for or against. It's not Trump and Hillary, right? But you have to produce the choice or the position that you take, rather than taking, or the sort of prefabricated ones that are there, right? So, a justified image is something that you can, for example, when it comes to a museum space, right? A justified image is one that you immediately can interpret and say, well, a black and white big photograph probably made by Pavel Althammer or something, is it? No. Yeah, of course. Boom. So, or I didn't want to sound arrogant, but if I did so. But anyway, so then here we can I can put it now into my sort of dilettante idea of art history, or whatever, our press or whatever the magazines I read. Everything is cool, no problem. It doesn't make me have, it doesn't give me it doesn't play hard to get, so to say, or it doesn't make me a problem. Whereas just an image, as in Godard, it's an image to which I necessarily have to have a problem, because it doesn't announce itself as something. It is something, but yet to become something. Just an image is indeed the moment before the performance, right? When I come on, or whoever it now is, when I come on, but still nothing has happened. This moment is that where everything, it can still be everything. And certainly it's much more difficult to consider how to make just an image. A justified image is easy to make, right? But how to produce an image that is just an image to which, and because the problematic with this image is that you, as the one that produces the image, can also not identify with it. I cannot say, this is my just an image. Now, no, it's worse than so, right? It needs also then to withdraw from the one producing it. It needs to, withdraw. It needs to go away. And in a way, as you produce just an image, it implies a betrayal to yourself as yourself as identity. It's the moment when I stand in front of just an image, I am also at stake, right? I am also then I cannot identify with just an image. My position is undermined. My position is corrupted. Not towards this or that profit or prominence or whatever, but it's simply undermined. Maybe this is a luxury problem for, somebody that grew up in Sweden and have all privileges, So that I don't say that this is something that one should do or whatever, but from the position that I have been elected for, this is something that I find interesting and important. Namely, if an art is, rather than justifying something, if an art is something that withdraws from justification, becoming just, it is also producing a space in which there is no difference in between any of us. In front of an artwork, it is not that we have equality. some museum or whatever say, well, we have no, it doesn't cost nothing to see the exhibitions in our because we want to be we produce equality. It's better than so and much worse than so. In front of an artwork whose ambitions is towards just an image. In front of such an artwork, we are equally. We are not equal, but we are equally. We are equally in front of it, no matter what. Nobody has prominence to be in front of this work. We are equally. Equally, both us people, but also the chairs and the floor and some memories that are in the space. I like to think about this, that art is not about equality, art is not about democracy, art is not about politics in the sense of production of opinions or whatever, but on the contrary, in front of an artwork, it's equally. Everything is equally in front of an artwork. In other words, it is a space where we can produce politics rather than obtain it or rather than harness it. It is a space where in 1990 was a bit of a terrible moment because then Judith Butler published a book called Gender Trouble. And it's been a very important and undeniable book. But it was also something else about it, and that is how it's sort of, as you know, what Butler proposes is that the subject is not something that has ability, but it is a practice or a process. The subject, the you in you, is performative. Now, this is slightly an abbreviated version of Butler, but nevertheless. So, the subject has no nucleus, but it is a production. And this obviously is great news for all of us, because at this moment there is nothing that we can say, that's typically Swiss. There cannot be something typically Swiss, there's only conventions, and since there's no nucleus, since there's no soul, there can also be no categorizations. There's no such thing as a woman or a dog owner, they are all conventions. And since they're conventions, we can also tweak them. It's not saying that it's easy, but through reiteration of the classical example is, where are you from? Oh, I'm from Sweden, or no, I was born in Sweden. How do you say this, right? I am Swiss, and I sign up for direct democracy and whatnot. Or I was born in Switzerland, and that's an altogether different story. So how you say your name is how we also confiscate conventions and can make them, slide or whatever. Correct. Now, Butler is obviously a Foucauldian and post-structuralist, so she can also not, in any respect, what can she not? Oops. I know, it can be demanding to listen to about Judith Butler, so you fall off. But so, what is it that Judith Butler cannot handle, right? For Judith Butler, I mean, and her folks, she's lovely, but her folks, but for Judith Butler, the museum is never closed. Right? The museum can never be closed in Judith Butler's life. And that's the problem also with her, is that she's always fucking alive. She's all so alive. For Judith Butler, there is no bucket for the paint. And there is obviously no just an image. Everything is always justified. Everything is always language, and everything is always only power. And again, right, Judith Butler is tops and fab ass. But it comes to an end that we are in Judith Butler's systematic, the striving is towards equality, which sort of translated with Badiou would be to say, and equality is of course not something. It's not, and now, great, guys, we have equality, so now we can go for lunch. Of course, that moment is when we announce equality, that's fucked. Because then I was the one that said it. Now we're equals. But who selected me, or how do I take that position? So for Butler, In a way, what happens is also that Judith Butler disqualifies the very notion of aesthetic experience. Because for Judith Butler, everything is only a sign. Or not only, but I mean, yes, only a sign. However, a sign is a lot. But for Butler, everything is only a sign. It can never be that which is just. It can never be that that opens up for something that it yet can, who knows what it is, right? For Butler, there is only possibly this or possibly that. Which was super important in that time, right? But perhaps we live in another time in 2016. We also know this sentence from Peggy Fallon, right, from 1993 in a book called Unmarked, where she says, what is it that she says? The girl with the red sweater, do you know it? You look like it. Yes, she says. Great. So, Judith Butler, no, what was her name? They're the same girl, basically. Peggy has longer hair. So Peggy says that, performance becomes itself in and through its own disappearance. And therefore, there's a ... and therefore, it implicitly is, on an ontological level, a problem for economic or political systems deal based on reproduction. Capitalism and everything that kind of emanates out of capitalism, socialism as well. So performance becomes itself in and through its own disappearance, and therefore it is a problem for capitalism. 1993, sure. But then we think about today, and we say, but of course, performance is now not anymore a problem, it's rather a fab-ass resource. 25 years ago, we lived in a world that was still based on somehow, at least discursively, on the manufacturing of objects, on mass production. Whereas 25 years later, it seems most of us, at least in our part of the world, is involved in the material production. And we remember Paolo Virno talking about this in this book called The Grammar of the Multitude, where he proposes basically, well, shitballs, we have all become performance artists. That's what we do, right? It's showtime all the time. We perform. And that's what I do today with you, right? My job is not to say something... Well, no, my job is to say something that is great, but not something that is, knowledge. Basically, I should make you happy and feel like, I think he said something also important, but I don't remember what. I will remember later when I go back to my notes, and you will of course never do, and that's great. But we can, who says that? The Blanchot or somebody who says that, of course we take note in order not to have to remember it. Now it's in the book, so then I can go home and think about something else. But voila, so in any case, so Butler and Fallon says performance, awesome, identity, great. Butler, of course, is a sort of a leftist or Marxist, but 25 years later we see like, but the post-structuralist Foucauldian position, the sort of with a slash to psychoanalysis, has a kind of backfired and now become exactly the centerfold of a society of venture capitalism. And you remember in that book called The Coming Insurrection, right, that you can download on the internet, and it's also available in French. There we can read in the 3rd chapter, the first sentence is something in the direction of, and obviously you know that your most important property is not your house, your BMW, or your art collection, it is your subject. It is, what you sell is the you, is your subject. What you sell is your identity. So the reason why you go to yoga, or the Ashtanga yoga, is not to look better, it is in order to be an individual that goes to a yoga studio that has a certain kind of status. You go there to enhance yourself, selling yourself as performance, selling yourself as immaterial. So, since Butler and others, identity being something that complicates stuff, performance as something that complexifies understandings of capitalism has now moved into the center. So when I was little, well, in the beginning of the 90s, we were hanging out in the sort of performance field, and you know, there were these conceptual choreographers called Mårten Spångberg, and I can't remember what they were called actually. They were all extremely happy about this. Yes, since we are doing performance, we are a problem for capitalism. And we forgot that part where Peggy Fellow says on an ontological level. We thought that as long as we don't make some objects, we are a problem for capitalism. So I mean, not that I have a well. So we need to think about this a little bit when we go see a Tino Segal piece. What happened since he premiered, he debuted in say Manifesta 2002 or something? What happened during these 15 years of his practice of being contained by 2002, Tino Segal was a major problem for the art world. But perhaps what it also backfired on Tino is that now he's actually exactly that brilliant thing, right? Because now we don't have to deal with shipping of this stuff. And certainly, the great thing is that we don't have to have a, what do you call this, climatization in the museum, in the collection, when we show Tino Segal work. Excellent. So, but I recommend that you go and see it later on, directly from here. It's a very little nice walk over to the Tanz house. The piece is great. So, where were we? Boom. I can't remember why I started to talk about this. Yes, so for Butler, identity, etc. Boom. So, again. Wait. Okay, good. I also read on the internet that it's good to have a Q&A, and I always miss out on that one. So, yes. If the subject is performative, if the subject is a language or semiotic capacity, Judith Butler cannot in any respect consider anything else than possibility. You can only be what you can possibly be. What about now? If we hook up with capitalism for a little bit, and we can say, well, capitalism is happy with anything that you can possibly be, as long as you can possibly be it, because then we can identify you and we can say, for this person, we have a magazine that we can sell. And for you, we have a restaurant that we can recommend. And for you, you can go to the Holy Cow or whatever that one is called, the vegan restaurant kind of guy, right? It doesn't matter. And the problem is that it doesn't matter at all if you are against something or for something. If we can consider that, well, let's make politically engaged art so that we take down capitalism. But capitalism is happy about that, right? Because, great, then we can also have a magazine for the resistance party. Then we can also kind of have shoes for engaged art people. A6 or whatever it's called. Do you know this short, the abbreviation? They're called A6, right? But it's why are they called A6? Yeah, gorgeous. Anima sano in corpore sano. A healthy body, a healthy soul in a healthy body. Pretty cool, right? Adidas and whatever, that's some German dude. The puma, that's a kind of a panther that is a little bit sad. But A6, Greek philosophy, Latin maybe more, but anyway, feels good. So for Butler, on the other hand, exactly, right? So for Butler, this is still something great. Because exactly what anima sano in corpore sano, a healthy soul in a healthy body. There is something problematic here, right? Because what the fuck is healthy? It's justified, right? I don't want to wear A6 anymore. can we swap shoes with somebody that has a regular pair of Nikes? Whatever. So, Nike is better, right? That's a goddess. And the goddess is somebody who's beyond language in a way, right? So that's a goddess is somebody who is not part of Judith Butler's department. Because a goddess is a goddess. Nike was Nike from forever and until forever. She's the one that saves us from our identities. So Nike is a non-identitary capacity. Nike is also non-performative, right? In a sec. So, why did A6 come to mind? So, exactly. Capitalism is equally happy about anything. So now, a couple of years ago, Franco Biffo came out with a book called A Soul at Work, and Maurizio Lazzarato came out with a book called something else, The Indebted Man, I think. And basically what they say in those books, together with a bunch of other critical theory philosophy people, my preferred way of saying it is from Reza Negarestani, who, in parentheses, is a little bit and it has been influential. His thinking has been influential for the performance yesterday, and somebody who resonates quite intensely with me. Anyway, so what Negarestani says is our problem today is that the enemy and the sponsor of the insurrection is the same guy, capitalism. And the other day, it was great. I live in Brussels, and the way to the school that I worked, I came by on the wall. There was on some electricity thing on the pavement. There was a sticker saying, not downwind or not fight. Fight capitalism. And in fight and capitalism, there was a machine gun. Which is no problem. The only problem is that I recognize this machine gun as something produced by American industry. I thought that sticker was really, really amazing. It could almost be like kind of a what is Maurizio Le Catalan kind of take on political activism. So fight capitalism and an AK-47 in between. So. So the enemy and the sponsor of the insurrection is one and the same, capitalism. The way that Franco Biffo says it is a little bit different, and he basically says our problem today is, Jameson said it, and then Zizek said it, and Biffo said it again. And Jameson said it first, and he says it's obviously, it's more difficult today to imagine a way out of capitalism than the apocalypse. Indeed, right? Because the apocalypse is no problem to imagine. It would be like a firestorm starting in Los Angeles, and then Bruce Willis is back and he stands there and pulls back the firestorm and then whoosh over Manhattan. But how do we imagine a way out of capitalism? The problem, of course, is that the imagination that we could use out of capitalism is capitalism. Our problem is that the veriness of our imagination is a capitalist, is a profit-based, is an expansive kind of imagination. So there is no way out of capitalism. We are fucked. We're deeply fucked. So, and then Zizek says it, he quotes, right? And Biffo says, our problem is that capitalism, and not that I am still on the safe side because I haven't said neoliberalism a single time today, right? So it's kind of cool. Right. Neoliberalism we can only use in evening lectures. So, so capitalism. So what he says is that the problem that we have today is that capitalism has become has expanded to such an extent and has been so excellent in commodifying capacities in the world that it has commodified language in itself. Capitalism has made language a financial capacity. In other words, whatever you say or not is already a capacity for financialization. Not that language, and every time I say cheese, that means I'm going to ka-ching in somebody's cash machine, right? But it means that whatever I say can be a financial capacity. So when I Facebook, then I work as a volunteer for Zuckerberg, who then can sell more advertisement and blah, 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 like boring stuff. But nevertheless, so what we can do, capitalism is happy about everything. Everything that is dividable, because we can sell one to you and another copy to you. We can have 64 people in our restaurant, and that means, so maybe one could think about it in this way. Only that which is undividable can be a problem for capitalism. Only that is undividable, or that is undividable is also, by necessity, something that cannot be identified. That is undividable necessarily withdraws from becoming, so to say, anthropomorphized or subjectified. The substance is not there for you as an audience. It is there to withdraw from you constantly. It withdraws and withdraws. On the other hand, I think the performance yesterday, for you who saw it, it was because, a little bit unconsciously, but it was because I thought the most difficult thing to do ever is to get away with playing this love song by Sade. No, not Sade, but what's her name? English, a little bit brownish, what? Adele, to get away with playing love song by her in a performance, and people would just not go, oh my God, that dude is so sentimental. So I think that it was like 4 hours and 16 minutes was needed to play that song, and you could actually say, yeah, this is pretty cool. And of course, right, because also, so Roland Barthes, I don't know why these philosophers name dropping comes to them, but anyway, Roland Barthes has it most of the time in his life. In the end, he becomes a little bit peculiar, and then he becomes fun. But so, Roland Barthes is a structuralist. As we know, he died in 1982 or something. He was driven over by a tram when he was lighting his cigar. Anyway, and he never left his mother's house neither. So Roland Barthes was a structuralist, and he has it. He says, you fall in love, you fall out of love, you recover from love, and you fall in love again. We can abbreviate Roland Barthes' 4-step love idea to Madonna's 1-step. Love is something that we do. Love is something that I do. And what we do, obviously, has teleology. I cannot do something that doesn't have a direction. Hello? Has direction. Every activity, human or otherwise, has teleology, has direction, has some kind of trajectory. Love is something that we do. Obviously, Roland Barthes could not have it otherwise in order to be a fulfilled structuralist / post-structuralist, because if love would not be something that we do, fall in love, fall out of love, recover from love, and fall in love again, it would be to acknowledge some kind of metaphysics, or some kind of substance, or some kind of philosopher's stone, or some kind of transcendent, So, for Roland Barthes, love is something that we do. Love is a semiotic story, right? So then, if love is something that I do, and I do it again, would mean that when I fall in love the next time, I will fall in love the same way, it's just another person. But isn't that to degrade love a little bit, like going to a restaurant? Like, what's your type? Oh, I go to Japanese restaurants. I like the sushi here. No, I don't. I want to believe a little bit more in love. But, so to say, so But so indeed, right, Rolland disqualifies love. He disqualifies any kind of, one could maybe make the distinction between true love and that there's truth in love. I don't believe in true love, but I have to believe that there's truth in love. If love would be true, it would be a little bit sad, because, like, for example, I fall in love with Mark, and then it happens that he, whatever. Or maybe another example. Just think about if I would fall in love, true love, when I was 16, and then for some reason the person that I fell in love with dies or something, then that would be really bad, because then how would I fall in love for a second time if love were true? Right? True is true no matter what. So if you have had true love once in life, there cannot be a second truth, because that would be a half-truth. No. So, bad idea. But if we can say that there's truth in love, would be to say, it is not true in me, but that in that experience, when I fall of falling in love or being in love, is true in so matter that it is in you that I am in love right now and nobody else. And this love is this love and none other. There is no justification to why I love you. And I can absolutely not justify why it is. Roland Barthes, goodbye. Judith Butler, goodbye. I say, let's fight for love. And say there's truth in love. But if it is truth in love, indeed, it is not something that we do. Love, Zizek writes about it also in this really recent book called The Event. Love is not something that you do, it's something that happens to you, right? Love is not something that you touch, you're touched. Now I have to smoke because soon I will fall to start crying. Love is not something that you do, love is not something that you touch. You're touched by love. And it is not you who touches me with your love, it's love as such. When you touch me, it is love in itself that touches me. The person that I spend the night with, or the person that I take a walk with, or whatever it is that we do, it becomes a kind of vehicle or a token for the truth in love. The expression into the world is never true, but with this expression it resonates of a truth. So we are also never in possession of love, but we only become envelopes of love letters, of true love letters, right? We become envelopes of, no, not of love letters, we become envelopes of truth. You know, many years ago I came across this, Bruce Nauman has this neon sign, right? Where it says, artist brings mystic truth. And that is really sad. How can he say something like this? You know, I read Butler and I read Peggy Fallon and I identified with Foucault and so on. So I had to dismiss it over and over and over again. But then, on second thought now, a little bit later, that Bruce was right already then. Indeed, what artists are doing, they bring mystic truth. But they are only the bringers of. And they are only the bringers of mystic truth. They are not bringers of truth. It must be mystic, right? So that my job is my job is to demystify the truths that are brought, and in the process of demystifying it, it can also not any longer be true. Because then I introduce it into semiotic organization, and then it is again a Butlerian capacity. So art is never true, but it brings not equality, but it brings equally. In front of mystic truth, we are all equally. What the artist is bringing is just, nothing justified. Indeed, right? So, but why do you love me? It's because your long legs. But if you would then there would be a guy with even longer legs, I would be out the window. So when I love you because I love you. I love you because I love you. And then, I mean, don't blame me. It's not, I didn't do it. I was touched by love, and therefore I am here. I wish for you something way better than me. But now here I am, so. And then Agamben talks about this in a book called The Coming Insurrection, the Coming Community, 93 or something. And there, in the beginning of the book, there's a little chapter called Whatever. I mean, the chapter is called Whatever. It's not that the chapter is called Whatever, but no, the chapter is called Whatever. So, Ronja. That is a thing that I have from my grandmother. It's always good to recognize somebody in the audience halfway through, because then somehow you produce a better, deeper connection, or fourth wall is falling apart or whatever. Great dramaturgical tricks for you especially. Now, in this text, whatever, Agamben says that he always does this, right? Nowadays it's bad. In the Latin times, or long time ago before Italian, then things were better. Then they were really great, actually. They were super. So he says that whatever, as we understand whatever today, like, hey, darling, I'm going to see the football with the boys. Whatever. Meaning as if I could care. For Agamben, he proposes that in the Latin times, whatever rather meant whatever it is, always of importance. Kodlibe meant not as if you could care less, it meant whatever it is to be acknowledged. And in this, he says, he does, as I remember, in 2 steps more or less. He said, with this in mind, there's no place for categorization. Whatever it is, it's important. Even if I identify you as whatever, even if I identify you as in this conventional something, and he proposes he does this, yeah, but that's a French thing. No, there is no, if we think about whatever as Kodlibe in Agambenian terms, there is no such thing. Because whatever it is of importance right now, right here, now. And then he says, so similarly, so then what about love, says Agamben? And he says, indeed, right? When I love whatever. You touched me with love. Whatever it is that you do is always of importance. I might not want it, or I might not like it, or I might not, how do I say, it might not it might not be playing on my guitar, but it is whatever, and I've been touched by love, and therefore, whatever it is you. I don't know what it is, but, and then says Agamben, and this is not a matter of getting to necessarily to know you better, but it is to learn or to come closer to the idea of love. Now you can start crying a little bit. Feel it coming up. So, now, well, everything is open, but I'm not done with yet. But I have 4 minutes left until I was what I said. So whatever. You learn about the idea of love. You learn about not that I truly love you, but you learn about the truth in love. And if this is the truth in love, if this is something that is whatever and that withdraws, it is something in love we are equally again. Love cannot have justification. It is just. I just love you. Then, however, butlers and other folks would then say, or capitalism in particular, would follow up with what I'm about to say, you love, you fall out of love, you love again, or whatever. That would be great, because then we can make money on it, right? IKEA promotes divorce, obviously. Then you buy new furniture. We move in with somebody new. Great. Capitalism loves divorce. And also loves not to divorce, of course, because capitalism loves everything anyway, right? So, now, if we come back to Zizek, we would say, number one, or we would come back to the sentence, the problem that we have is that the enemy and the sponsor of the insurrection is one and the same. But we come back to say, fuck. If language is a financialized capacity, then language cannot be that brings us out of capitalism. Not because we want to have socialism, but because capitalism is obviously not good enough, right? There are people with asymmetrical haircuts, there are pollution, and there are, conferences about socially engaged art and other things. Obviously, capitalism is great, but it's not good enough. And our job cannot be to be complacent, but maybe our job can be to sort of figure out not what should we have instead, but maybe art could be that space where we say, anything, whatever it is always of importance. In front of an experience to which we are equally, there is no reactive experience, but an active experience, which is one that perhaps it carries the first little seed or the first little nucleus for another way of thinking, for another kind of thought. Not a thought that is based on capitalism, but another kind of thought. So my proposal is that only in front of an experience to which we are equally can there be or I would say that other way, only in front of an experience to which we are equal, in front of an experience to which we are equally, can there be potentiality, which is that goes beyond the realm of the possible, namely, one that to which I have to say, it is whatever. In that respect, they can also, something can show up that is not because of capitalism, but it's a thought that is because. And that thought always carries truth. Until we will do a little trope on this one as well. Because we have to come back to this essentialism story, right? So, Jesus Christ. But anyway, okay, so then this is one is important. So, especially architect people, and so they often talk about this, activists and so on, they talk about, public space is under threat. We need to reanimate public space needs to be reclaimed. And it always seems then to me that what they think about public space or public is somehow outdoors. There's a kind of over there, and it's sort of a space that nobody really wants, or like, under a bridge a little bit, or somewhere that smells a bit of urine. But if we want them to claim these spaces, it means, we could say that it means to bring them into light. So here we can also have a skateboard park. Or like, and then for some of us have been, some people have once in a while been invited to biennales, and then sort of the Gothenburg Biennale 2000 a while ago was sort of announcing really happily, and you know what? We're going to have the Biennale in kind of off spaces, in awkward rooms in the la 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 in the city, and sort of over there under the da da da, and then here's the very little harbor part that you should make art. What do you mean? I sort of hang my fucking canvases on a shed. No, my paintings weren't white. It was blah blah blah. And then you think about it to 2 seconds more, and you say, aha. Oh, of course, yeah. So the local government says, we give you the money for the Biennale if you point out so that we can then start selling this to hotel blah, 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 or conventional gentrification. So you go, biennales are there because they, which is no news, but I'm sorry for saying it. But art does not, that kind of, so it's hanging in some sort of public space, but that is so not public art, right? Even if you make a little pool or some, whatever activity, somebody standing around in a corner and say, oh, maybe we can talk about global market economy for a while, and you get half the feedback. What do you think? But, you know what I mean? No, it doesn't happen like this, right? So what then about public art? What about this moment of public? What is that? And we know from the Greek times, right? So the public, a public, not necessarily public space, but a public, or the public, is of essence in respect of it's a space where political negotiation is being done, right? It's a space to which there is, which we need to have in order for politics to happen. It's a space that we need in order for general intellect to sort of flourish. It is a space that we need. I could say it isn't. We can say like this, but it's a space that we need, or it's a capacity that we need in order for intelligence to grow or happen. My intelligence grows not in me, nor in public space, but it grows or it capacitates in the oscillation in between me as private and that is public. We need public in order for general intellect to flourish, right? Okay, fine enough. But what is then public? Public is not a room. Public is not under a fucking bridge. Public is definitely not where Biennale happens. But maybe public is that is whatever. Maybe public is exactly that, a space or a spatiotemporal enunciation that is not, that is whatever. Or rather to say, public is that I cannot take home. Public is that I cannot put in my bank vault. Public is that to which when I come home to my husband or whatever, when I say, so where have you been? Oh, I've been in public. So what happened? Yeah, it's that you cannot even say more than announce that it's over there, but you cannot claim it when you come home. You cannot say, like, after, it's exactly something that doesn't have dramaturgy in that sense, right? It's something that you cannot, it was. So, public so now this comes to, here's the promotional, here's the elevator pitch or something. So what I do in my work is, what the attempt of the work that I do is it's an attempt to produce spatiotemporal or a kind of moment of public, which is moments of whatever. It is moments of just, not justification. It's a moment of just. But it is also then a moment to which I cannot belong, right? It's a moment to which I have to give up myself in favor of. How is that, right? So, you can never decide to fall in love, but it is decided for you, right? So what the performances what the work that I do is all about is this attempt to produce a moment of public, but that of course cannot be a public that we share. This is ours now, right? No. A moment of public is your moment of public, and it's your moment of public, and I can never give it to you, right? I cannot never pass it on. I can only produce the possibilities of its contingent happening. And this moment of public is always contingent. It is never a space of probability, but it is one that is, as I said, whatever. So, And a little bit too direct proposal. It's great. With the performance yesterday, the best part of it is that nobody ever says anything else than it was great. Nobody says, but what was it was great? It was amazing. I mean, maybe they just lie to me, and the people that don't come up to me, of course, they maybe think a lot of other things. But I very much like this, that people just come up and say, that was great. It's often that they grab me hard with the arms and say, that was great. And I go away, that was great. I like, and why do I like it? It's exactly because that happened had this quality. It was something, but I have absolutely no idea of how to articulate it, right? You will remember in the 90s when conceptual dance performances happened, and we went to see these shows and they were quite boring, but afterwards in the foyer, we were really intelligent and said, yeah, I mean, Sharon's take on Abart's really like, it's so exquisite. Yes, but I mean, it's interesting also to read him from a perspective of Deleuze's second chapter of Difference and Repetition, and regurgitating what we already knew. And it was extremely exclusive, right? So for my mother, who doesn't really find Roland Barthes funky, for her it's like, yeah, but why wasn't there no Simon and Garfunkel? I like that. Conceptual dance was prominently constipated. I would rather, I find it much more phenomenal when two people come out of a show and come out and one says to the other, that was sort of kind of, for me, it was a little bit, you know what I mean? Kind of, and another person said, no, it was more, yeah. But I like the yellow part. You know, when she comes in for the right, and then he has the, whatever now was, right? And then the other friend says, you mean the moment with the father? So this is something, that's where I wanted to be, right? Where we have been in the same space, but the experience that we've had is maybe is hardly correlatable, right? The only thing we know is it was the same. It was Tuesday night from 12 to something. But apart from that, and exactly, it was an experience that doesn't give justification, so that you had to make the experience, and because your dad is a really great guy, or not a great guy, or blah, 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 or it was an anniversary or something, then that part became about the father. And for somebody else, it became about yellow, or for somebody else, and for somebody else, and for somebody else. This is where work. Indeed, right? That's the moment when we are equally. So art, dismissing Judith Butler, dismissing performativity, is always an attempt for the production or the possibility of a moment of public. A moment of being touched by, but never being able to touch that, and never being able to contain it. So, finally, even though I could speak for another few hours, so finally, a few years ago, well, anyway, so, why did I think about that? Yeah, so in a way, however, in order for this to happen, of course, it is also all a matter of, even what I'm interested in is this dissolving of time. It is important that there's two kinds of time, right? So rhythmical time, or divisible time, and intensive time. So, in a rock music, you always feel at home, because you know when 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 is. For Deleuze, that's like fine and fab, but that's not enough. He's interested in rhythm as in intensive time. It is not about 1, 2, 3, 4. It's about the proximities of when that number 2 is not really 2, and it is sort of in this sort of micro-dynamic that this intensity is happening. I'm interested rather in the moment where time becomes indifferent. And since I've only said basically one sentence this last an hour, 15 minutes, the moment of indifference is the moment of when the paint is in the bucket, right? It is when it can be everything, always and forever at the same time. And both the ones that we can imagine and the ones that we cannot, or cannot even imagine imagining. So, then, which is also then, and here, now this is the last one, which is also that it's not a matter of essence, in the sense of modernism had a proposal on essence that could be abbreviated in the sense of if we just dig deep enough, we would sort of, there it is, great, now we have it. I mean, I was thinking about this at some point on a train. So how great it must have been for Jackson Pollock in the morning, when like he was having breakfast with his wife and they probably had a little kid, and then he went to brush his teeth or whatever, and then he came by the kitchen door, and on his way out, and then the wife, I mean, this is a heteronormative story or whatever, and the wife says, "Hey Jackson," it's really comical that she would say, "Hey Jackson," but anyway, "Hey Jackson, where are you going?" And then he could say, he could sort of lean into the kitchen and say, "I'm just going painting." Just think about how wonderful that must have been. I'm just going painting. But then after 1967, or something like this, like one of our publishes The Death of the Author, and then Joseph Kossuth, it's quite fun that Joseph Kossuth and Charles Manson grew up in the same town. This, I think, is extremely funny. And they are born 2 years apart, so they went to the same high school. Isn't that amazing? What is worse, conceptual art or the beginning of serial killers? I mean, who should be in jail? Anyway, there's coincidences can happen in life. Anyway, so if you stay in the art world for too long, you can become this cynical and macabre in your humor. Joseph Kossuth, yes, so after 1960-something there, of course, Jackson Pollock could not sort of show up in the kitchen and say, "I'm just going painting." Because how could he if he knew that everything is anyways language, right? Everything is semiotics, everything is post-structurally inscribed, everything is identity, everything is performative. Then you have to fucking justify what you're doing. You cannot just paint. But of course Jackson Pollock could do, because he was going to paint the essence of painting. And that is something that you cannot have justification to do. Then you can just hope for the best. That, damn! You know what? And he came back, Rosalind, it showed up. Essence is there. But after 68, then he had to have justification. So he can just turn into, that's a long discursive attitude that I have to do. I mean, I need to go Foucault through and through, and then I probably have to, Althusser. And that, the moment of post-structuralism kicks into the art world, that's also the moment when the painter never ends up in the studio, because exactly he needs to justify himself going to the studio for such a long time that he never ends up there. So they were digging for an essence, and then they could, of course they didn't find it, or luckily, because of course we also know that if they could find essence, just as a thought experiment, if art would find essence, that would be the last artwork. You cannot do, and this painting is called Essence 2. But the day after Essence. One would always have, if I would ever make, like Sam Taylor Wood did this film called 50 Shades of Grey, right? The video artist who did that dance video in the 80s, it was so great. If I would be asked by Hollywood as some kind of performance artist, what film would you like to direct? I would like to say, I would like to direct Coyote Ugly 2. Cleaning up of the bar. Like the moment after you stand there and after the burning tequila, so okay, So who's going to make the coffee? Yeah, oh, I'll take that on me. Sad movie, and they would still have this super short denim shorts, right? Gorgeous. Anyway, justification and so on.
Should we open it up?
Yeah, I mean everybody can ask a question at any time. But
let me jump in.
Yeah.
So because yesterday I was at the performance and I really had to get into it, and maybe in the beginning I didn't even like it so much, but there was this moment, and I think now you explained it with all the anecdotes and everything, because should I come and join you?
We'll it's fine, like whatever.
No, I stay here. Okay. Because there, I think it's the substance that I maybe felt. Yesterday I explained it to myself that I can feel humanity. It was this moment when Genie in a Bottle was played all over again, and there was just like, and I felt everyone is so tired and is actually just feeling it. We're feeling the performance. They were like in this mode where they were like freely dancing, having fun, and some people in the audience like also danced, and we were like, it was touching. I felt the audience was allowing feelings and stuff because you were tired, and it was an emotional and also bodily experience. And maybe this was the substance, and maybe also the bucket and all the anecdotes you told us. But maybe the question would be, to be really concrete, what is it? How do you create this moment? And it happens like after 3 or 4 hours for me.
Yeah, I mean the
like
in the bucket.
Concrete question.
The moment is called a dance, and Deleuze, that I have spent too much time with, Deleuze, in the very, very last text that he writes, it's called A Life, and he makes a difference in between life as my life or this life or so on, and a life as being life in essence or generic / in essence life. So that moment that happens approximately after 2 hours 30 minutes, a dance is an attempt to make not this or that dance, but it is, and Deleuze was French, right? So that's why it's called not a dance, but it's called a dance, S-E in the end. Very pretentious, obviously. But so indeed, what the dance is there to do is that it is not this or that dance, it's a dance. So exactly, it's there to capture the incapturability of an essential dance. So yes, the essence, so as we know, Kant cannot define aesthetic experience. He can only define it as in a negative sense. He cannot say aesthetic experience is this or this, that. No, he can only say aesthetic experience is not this kind of experience, it's not this kind of experience, it's not this and it is not this. It is exactly that we draw. So the dance that we do there is also, it's superimposed, but in a way that should be completely incomprehensible. You should feel, here's composition, so you can feel great. In front of composition, you always feel cool. Why does architects always have 2 wives? They prefer symmetry. So there we should, composition. Also, architects are people that fear mess. That's why they compartmentalize. Right? Choreographers, what do they fear? They obviously fear movement. That's why they domesticate them. Putting movement into choreography makes them harmless in a way, right? So in there, it is totally composed, but it should also be composed in a way that's so over the top obvious that it somehow, that you can kind of fall through.
So that is probably we felt so into it because we could relate to something. A composed dance, we know it.
But it is also then important that it is not there in any respect to be admired. So it is again Aguilera, 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 5 times Christina Aguilera. And this is a short version. I have there's a piece called The Internet that was from 2000. That was in Gessenali a couple of months ago or whatever. There's a dance there that is 55 minutes long to Lil Wayne musical I'm Single, but instrumental, and it goes on and goes on and on. So it should have this sort of kind of lullaby corruption sensation, right? But it is also that the dancing is whatever. So the material that they do are composed, are brought together in exactly not a sort of brought out of the artistic soul or some bullshit, right? But it is rather there, it's whatever. It is part of this Aguilera Dirty video, excellent, by the way. And there's some movement from Yvonne Rainer, and there's some Miley videos, and there's some Trisha Belly, Trisha Brown stuff. And what. So could I have this sort of, it's completely conventional, but I just don't know what. Conventional withdrawals. But of course, it's also important that if that dance cannot happen, we can never, or as I feel, or maybe that what I'm trying to work on right now, is to make a dance that doesn't need to be prepared, because the Aguilera moment needs 2.5 hours to be possible.
So is it that whatever it is, changed into whatever, like into the other sense?
In a certain way, right? We have to become, yeah, we have to produce, we have to sort of, what do you call it when you make, you have to knead the audience into this moment of indifference. So it has to be sort of hollowed out and hollowed out.
And do you think it's only working because of these 2.5 hours?
Well, I mean, from my perspective, I of course think that the most, that every second of that performance is very deeply dear to me. And I have worked it with from the depths of my soul, and with all my artistic integrity, etc. So no, nothing is necessary, but yes, in La Substance, these 2.5 hours was needed to happen. And I mean, it was needed to happen, for me, the most intriguing moment of the, well, no, that is not good. But what is my favorite, a moment that is an important moment, for me a more important moment is when they are sitting in the wall. This is the smallest choreography. This I like it. And in the work that we do a lot of chakra breathing practices, so energy stuff. And what they do in the wall is basically only to do forward. So they start by energizing forward. And then after 45 seconds or whatever, they do expand. And sort of in the expanding moment, there's lots of green chakra, lots of red chakra, lots of 7 chakra, to have the sensation that the body is expanding. And I wanted to produce a sense of a kind of this Hitchcockian moment when the camera is moving in and it's zooming out at the same time. So you feel that something is fucking happening with the room, but nobody moved. This, fab. Then there's a lot of symmetry in the piece. And this is also that symmetry is something that sort of, a little bit like, what do you call it, that it rocks you to sleep. Instead of asymmetrical shit, that's sort of, wow, I have to be attentive. So what I'm interested in is this sort of becoming indifferent to the situation. And the performance is not there for you. It's there for itself. What I'm trying to do is a performance that is as if the museum was closed. And it doesn't want nothing from you. It also doesn't want something from you. It is not there to exhaust anybody. It's not there to be, like a tease or a subversive or anything. It's just there to make us, in a way, coming back to this publicness. It's like, it's a matter of making us, so community has been a catchphrase or catchword in art for a while, right? I am an artist that works on uncommunity. I'm an uncommunity artist. And it is that is 2.5 hours, or the whole 4 hours, 20 minutes. It's 4 hours, not 4.5 hours, it's 4:20. Why is it 4:20?
4:20, smoke a joint.
Exactly. Smoke a joint is a matter of chilling out, you know, becoming available for indifference in a way, right? Right? Yeah.
Can I ask one question?
Oh yes.
I totally get the perception and the concept of it all, I have the feeling, but duration. Where did you start off with the duration, and what's the starting point of why would it be, apart from the meaning, why would it be 4:20? I see that falling in and out of love and recover and falling in love again, obviously that's totally what happened to me, and that needs a certain duration and a certain time. But was that from the beginning, when you, from in the creation of the whole piece, was that clear that it would be a long duration of performance?
No, yeah, so it's not a long durational performance, but no, it's, you know, I think I do, I have a title, I have a length. That's when I start. Yeah, that's always the starting point. But a piece is like, it's something that you, it's a bit disappointing also, right? It's coming back to love. It's like, a piece is like, I know, but I don't know what it is. And it sort of bubbles inside and bubbles inside and bubbles inside, but you don't know how, you cannot contain it somehow. And then there's the moment when you meet the curator or whatever, and it says, I have lots of money, and you come back, and that's the moment that it's called this, and it's this long. And that's sort of, it's like, it's this, and then it's sort of, finally through, and then it can grow again. So, La Substance knew that it was 4.5 hours, and then I figured out this 4:20 thingy. 4.5 hours, and it's called La Substance, but in English. The new piece is called Natten, the night, and it's 6.5 hours. I haven't figured out what 6.5 is yet. But then again, Natten, the night, and La Substance, the 2014 performance was called The Internet. They are all questions of indivisibility. So the night is a time of indifferentiation. So this is all, for now since a while, there's always this notions of indifferentiation, of indivisibility. But then, from a sort of a little bit of a too superficial capitalist sort of understanding, it's a matter of, it's also like, 4.5 hours is obviously, you're obviously not there to be attentive. So the announcement of 4.5 hours is also a way of saying that here you don't, it's okay. It's time for you. But it is not time for the you in you, it is time for the you that is not you in you, right? It's the time to become indifferent to oneself. It's there, you don't make here, you don't here, the museum is closed for you too. It is, we can just be here. And so, and this is, what is also, the thing is that this uncommunity, that is a matter of, the 2.5 hours before the dance moment is there to uncommunify us. That we become non-identitarian. We're just here. And then it's a matter of being and formulating a community of only us. Only now, this community. So I like, in the archaeology of knowledge, Foucault says this, it's the difference in between what is said and what is being said, to what is being said here and now, and only here and now. So, my work is not media specific, it's in a way, it's audience specific, in the sense of, it's this audience, this time, and this community is only now, and forever only now. It is us becoming public, to which I cannot claim, right? So, which is also that the audience, that there must be no instructions to the audience. Sometimes we do the performance and say, but shouldn't we then say that people can, shouldn't we have the password for the Wi-Fi on the wall or something? Or tell people that you can move around, or tell people you can come whenever you like, blah, blah, blah. No, it must happen because we are producing, we are uncommunifying ourselves, and then we build. And I think sometimes when we do the performance, it's beautiful to see how people are not really able to leave, not because they liked it necessarily, but because how do we leave this community, to which I don't know how I belong, but how do I stay faithful to this, so that we stay in the bar not because it's nice, but because we don't know how to go home. Right? But Monica.
So does the piece change during the time you were showing it? So.
No, everything is set.
Everything is set. So
yesterday it was 4 hours 24 minutes, and it was a bit slow.
No, I mean, what dancers do on the stage, or what you do, does this change or develop not in an evolutionary way, but maybe change in a way because you are doing other things meanwhile, and maybe this has side effects, or it doesn't?
Well, I mean, there's something. Yeah, sure. I mean, even if it doesn't change, it changes because I have changed. The way that I see the performance now after doing it 25 times or whatever, it's all different. And now...
You've done it 25 times?
Yeah, or something, yeah. Yeah. So, but it's exactly like, it's set, everything is set. Mm-hmm. And then...
Does the setting change?
No, nothing changes. It's exactly like this. I mean, it's also important that it's not some sort of performance. It's a dance. And it's done. It's an artwork properly or whatever. And and also all this Bitch Don't Kill My... What does it call that? Bitch Don't Kill My Wife. That one starts over and starts over and starts over and starts over. That is all set. Not exactly that it should start over at 44 seconds and then at 42 seconds, whatever. But all this sort of iTunes stupid, that's also set. And me and the singer, Simon, we Skype. And sometimes the Skype is, you hear it, sometimes you don't. Sometimes the sound of this coming too late, and all this is also done, so that we should have the sensation of something in between hyper-professional and totally amateur. So that, and he is very important, that I struggled with this for quite a long time, that the performance, even if the performance is really, really boring, you should at least be able to, after all, it's Rihanna, and this is what you do to Rihanna. But it took a long time to, how can I play pop music in a performance so that it doesn't become semiotics, right? So in that sense of, Sharon Bell did this piece called Show Must Go On, and then Titanic and Macarena. No, exactly, we don't want this conceptual understanding of stuff. And so there, I figured out, if there can be a person singing on top of, then that is stronger as a concept than the pop. So because Simon, the singer, he is there, it becomes whatever pop music. And at the same time, it's important that he's in the audience and not on stage, that he's not singing for you, he's singing for up there, as in a way that he becomes one of you, and all of you sing for there. Metaphorically or whatever speaking, right? So that it is not us deciding for you, it is you who go up there somehow. So I make a differentiation between conceptual work and work that is a concept. So conceptual work is basically translating somebody else's ideas to something that we can understand. But the performance is a concept, and the concept briefly speaking, is a machine that produces indetermination, that is in itself indeterminate. So what we want is something that we cannot interpret, but it is something that sets something in motion, which I cannot decide what that could be, only that it's possibly set in motion. But a machine that, a toaster is a machine that produces determination. You put in your hand, it comes out another nuance. A bread or a stone doesn't matter, every morning. But a concept is a machine that produces indetermination, namely, you put something in, and who knows what comes out. So in other words, conceptual performances or conceptual art is something that produces an exceptionally high probability, whereas I'm interested in an experience that produces contingency, namely that it is the only thing that is necessary is that there is something or not, some experience. But what that is, I must take my hands off that in order to say, otherwise I say, this is how you should experience this sort of piece of work, right? And then it becomes commentative, that I cannot handle. Now, and I think that it's important that it's not, it's not forever that I have been thinking like this, but I think it has even, I mean, obviously, this is a little bit of a defensive, what I'm going to say now, but obviously I have spent quite some time with speculative realism and object-oriented ontology, meaning that I indeed do, insist on that there is something real. We cannot access the real, or we don't have access to things in themselves and as such, but Butler and post-structuralism and performativity theories would say that even if there is something like this, let's don't talk about it. I would rather say we have to talk about it in order not to produce more critical art. Critical art is great, but it is also completely defending and consolidating a position. I'm interested in something else, because the position is always authorized, and it's authorized, and it's authorized, and who authorizes this position? We know. We are interested in a speculative capacity to which we have to give prominence to something real that withdraws and yet is there. So a concept is necessary in order for the possibility of aesthetic experience to happen. Conceptual art dismisses aesthetic experience if aesthetic experience is indeed what Kant proposes as a negative definition. It is not an experience to which one can produce comparable capacitation. So in this respect, I was just thinking, it's interesting that vampires, right? They are exceptionally good neoliberal citizens. They are immaterial in the sense of they have life, but they are dead.
Not strong needs.
They have exceptional desire. They have desire, the blood is all right, and they also hunt with the selection, virgins or something. Virgins or something. Anyway, so life, they have life, that they are dead. They have life, but they are dead. They are human, in a way, right? They are human, but they are dead. So they have life. I'm much more interested in zombies in that sense. And I think that I can recommend the performance that will happen later today or maybe tomorrow by Rory that deals with this zombie stuff. But so why am I interested in zombies? Not because they eat brains and not because they are on television. But I'm thinking that it's interesting for me to think about what if vampires have life but they are dead. Zombies, they are undead, but they have no life. Some vampires have life, but are dead. Zombies have only existence, but are undead. The zombie, the zombie is in that sense of being undead and not having life. He's not part of time. He's not somebody who can say yesterday or tomorrow or whatever. But he is. He simply is, right? So the zombie is really kind of interesting in the sense of he just is. And he hunts without distinction. He just eats fucking brains.
So it's in this festival we are all zombies?
No, I think on the
I'm
contrary.
just trying to
Yeah, but I think
and maybe an last question.
Wait,
and then
that's great.
Probably.
We have 3 minutes.
I have a question about a comment on the pop songs. I think you said you want to go away from semantics, and I think what helps is the strategy of the repetition of the pop songs. So at one point, everybody is just like relying on the songs, dancing. I saw some people even singing, and there a room of enjoyment is created. Everybody is really enjoying those pop songs, but you would also say, oh no, we don't listen to pop songs. I mean, in real life, we listen to the cool stuff. But there, everybody's enjoying, and I felt there is a moment of community together enjoying these pop songs, but then maybe the uncommunifying is that everybody has different kind of memories with those pop songs.
Sure, I mean, but yeah, absolutely. But I mean, in some sort of really simplistic, naive way, I think that there's too much violence and all things in the world that I want to make things together with people which all the audience, that we also say, fuck yeah, this is like the best brunch I've ever been to. And when you go home from the brunch and you meet somebody on the subway or whatever, it says, where have you been? I was on the brunch. How was it? I was great. Who did you talk with? I was great. And also something that I enjoy with these performances that people almost always say, I like that part, and then they have no idea where it happened in the show. They cannot retell it somehow. But yes, and lots of enjoyment, and it's important that you're not there to produce, so the pop songs are there to sort of de-criticize you. You're not there to be critical. You're there to sort of surf in a way, right? Not in a Deleuzean sense of surf, but another, I mean in the sense of surfing capitalism is not what I mean, but yeah, in a certain kind of schizophrenic maybe way, whatever. But it is not, but I have to make it come back there. It's not at all. I think that the problem is that so the vampire can sort of, I will now drink true blood, so that I will drink this blood possibly instead of this blood possibly, right? The vampire is alive and he chooses in between he chooses, has life, and he chooses between sushi and sashimi. The way that we have understood zombie is very often as the factory worker that is alienated and goes to work and no, and we want then the second version of a zombie is a sort of a contemporary zombie, which is the one that goes to Tate Modern. You know, the one that goes to Tate Modern, immaterial laborer, who goes to Tate Modern to consume himself as a cultural consumer. So he's kind of sucking his own blood and become more and more anemic as he goes around for yet another Francis Alice exhibition. That was really funny. So kind of the anemic zombie. I think there's a third zombie that I'm interested in, which I think which is also what is also this festival zombie, is none of those ones, but it is other one that says only in order for new forms of life, new forms of together to show up, I have to give up on life. I have to give up on life in order for life in the Deleuzean sense to possibly show up. So the festival is a performance festival, but what it really is a festival for new forms of life, which is not to learn to live finally in the Relied sense, right? But it is rather to not learn anything at all, but simply to show up. To show up for something. not to have made any decisions, and what in the La Substance, it is the 4.5 hours in order for us, for you and that person, as them, individually, singularly, to be, so to say, given permission to show up.
And to stay.
Well, that doesn't matter actually, but to show up, I mean this in the sense of show up, is sort of to be without circumstances.
Yeah.
So, really, a great book to read again is this Agamben's first book, The Man Without, without content. So have to be without Eigenschaften. To show up without the formation, right? This is what it's all about. And this is where I find also that in this way, maybe one could also think about Zurich Moves as a kind of a queer festival. Undercover, and it's great that this has this undercover queer. Zurich Moves is totally not announcing itself as queer, but what happens in this moment of showing up is also a queerifying, right? In the sense of, to here, we are equally. And I have to, when I encounter you, this person, I have to make this relationship our relationship. It cannot be dependent on anything else, right? Here we are equally. And what I understand queer to be is this withdrawal from definition, withdrawal from being nailed, or withdrawing from being compartmentalized. But in contrary to the sort of Sontagian queerness of the 60s, where it's a homogeneous society and now we need to heterogenize, we have a problem. Our world is so heterogeneous that, and of course capitalism loves queer, as long as we can say I'm queer this and I'm queer that. But what is cool with Zurich Moves in that sense, what's cool with Zurich Moves is exactly that today queer is not about an announcement of non-belonging, but it is a belonging to an unbelonging. So queer is also this giving up on life as we know it in favor of a life, which is any life, which is the life that we produce here and now and only here and now. And it will resonate in us, but not as something, but it will resonate in us as something, which is that to which when I come home to my husband or my wife or whatever, I have to wake her up and I say, I have to talk to you about this that I don't know what it is, but we have to talk. I cannot because I have to. Whatever that is, right? It's not important. It's important that we don't go for dinner after performances to talk about Deleuze. We go to dinner because we cannot go home. I cannot be alone after this because we have been equally.
So that's super nice to hear these words about the festival.
Hang loose, yeah.
And we still have some hours left, and thank you very much for thank you for being here.
Great. It's the best moment in life to be allowed to do these things. And you are so attentive, it's great.